You ever look back at something you said during a heated argument and you think to yourself, man, that wasn't me. This last week, I was walking across the street at a stop sign. It's a four-way stop. I had the right of way, and this car came, and as I was walking, it just completely went through this stoplight, and it just swerved around me. And I was so angry at this guy. Like, I just wanted to cuss him out, kick his car, throw a knife at him. No, not really. I was just so frustrated. And as I was reflecting, I sat down at the movie theater, and I was like, dude, I was so kind of overreacted there a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the idea is that you behaved in a way that was unfamiliar to you. This is what is called the shadow. And if you're an INFJ, that shadow looks a whole lot like the ESTP. But let's unpack why. So big boy Carl Jung believed that the shadow functions were the unconscious or the dark sides of our persona. The shadow is irrational. It's also instinctive. It's what we project onto our enemies, or when we feel uneasiness or a sense of inner conflict within ourselves. And so we find ourselves simultaneously intrigued and attracted to these functions in others, yet we also feel skeptical and dismissive of them at times as well. So shadow functions are the source of the negative and the unhealthy aspects of our personality. These are the parts of ourselves that we might feel a sense of shame from, that we exhibit when we lash out, when we behave in a way where we regret later. So let's first just break down the INFJ stack. So what we're dealing with here, and then we can go into the subsequent shadow features. And so first we have the dominant. This is the NI, the introverted intuition. This is sees patterns and everything. This is that intuitive nature that INFJs had. This is you attribute your insights to this introverted intuition. Next, we have the auxiliary function. This is the extroverted feeling function. This is what tunes into others' emotions. This is what seeks harmony. Next, we have the introverted thinking. So this is the tertiary function, and this desires logic. It wants accuracy. It loves data, things like that. And then the next is the inferior. So this is the SE, the extroverted sensing. This is just in the moment sensory sort of awareness. And so the opposite of all this is the shadow. So this is the ESTP shadow side of the INFJ. And so you have extroverted intuition. So this is what's called the Nemesis. So this is when you exhibit paranoia. Your ideas are scattered everywhere. You're overthinking every single possibility. You are extremely dismissive of others' opinions, their perspectives, and this is also accompanied by a hyperfixation on one's own beliefs. It's your singular. You have a singular point of focus, and it's usually on the negative. So there is a paralysis of possibilities. NE is the what if final boss. Every possible outcome, particularly those negative, will attempt to play itself like a broken record within the mind of the INFJ. This also affects the INFJ's relationships as it begins to perceive everyone around as having ulterior motives. And what's happening is, so you have NE that is still trying to read between the lines of everything, but it's tainted by this suspicion and by this doubt. And so this turns the INFJ into this hyper-independent state of mind, since it's beginning to perceive the outside world as suspicious and untrustable. Next, you have the critical parent. So this is the introverted feeling, the FI. So this is when you have this harsh internal judgment. There's a hyperfixation on one's own pain, and there's this very selfish sense of moral reasoning. You believe that nobody understands you, and so you retreat to this bitter isolation. And what's interesting with this shadow function of the FI is it will exhibit itself in either a superiority complex or an inferior complex. So this notion of no one understands me can be rooted in a place of worthlessness or feeling unwanted, or from this place of superiority, thinking that you are just better than everyone else. So it's important to understand that this can go both ways. So next you have the third function. This is the extroverted thinking, also known as the Trickster. This is when the INFJ begins to exhibit very aggressive logic. There's bluntness. There is a controlling nature. Empathy is just completely turned off. And so you become very argumentative. You say things not to understand, but you say things in order to win the conversation. And not only are you dismissive of the emotional nuances within others, but you are also dismissive of that emotion and of that pain within yourself as well. And I think it's just important to understand here that there's a difference between being strong, acknowledging that life is hard, there's pain in your life, versus suppressing and rejecting those emotions because they are too difficult to deal with, or maybe they seem too trivial. And so it's important to note that this can turn into a form of denial if the INFJ's pain is not dealt with immediately. And then next we have the introverted sensing. This is the demon. So this is the last function in the stack. And this is the most chaotic in the stack and the most unconscious. This is the culprit of all of your past trauma loops, your unhealthy nostalgia as your body is stuck in the past. Shadow SI causes you to completely lose touch with your own internal timeline. Introverted sensing. So this is what causes you to just feel like your life is in a loop. This is what causes you to feel like your past is haunting you. And nine times out of 10, it's this demon of SI that's pulling up these old memories and not only replaying them in your head, but they're skewing the reality of your memory of that. And so it's a very tainted memory, right? Memories are neutral, right? We understand that, but the demon, this SI, it kind of warps it in a way. And as the INFJ begins to obsess and ruminate over those thoughts, it begins to eventually just kind of build up this dark cloud of just haziness that is, it follows the INFJ everywhere. If you're someone that repeatedly gets into the same dynamic of toxic relationships, of asking yourself this question, why does this always happen to me? Why do I always attract this same type of partner? You need to understand that there's a good chance that SI, this introverted sensing, could be at play. It's like, people in this mode are not using their past as these learning guides. It's something that they are trapped in. In other words, they feel like history is doomed to repeat itself in their life. So as we wrap up here, INFJs are introverted dominant users. They're NI users, right? They live in a world of internal meaning. Stress pulls them out of their inner world and forces them to rely on functions that are completely foreign to them. And so the result is this ESTP behavior that they don't admire, and they certainly do not feel good in. And so this is what leads you to a place where you feel like you don't recognize yourself. And it's because you're operating from a place of survival, not that place of authenticity. And operating from authenticity, of course, doesn't mean that life is exactly well or even good at the moment, right? It just means that, you're operating from a place of honesty with yourself and showing self-compassion to those areas where you will inevitably fall short time and time again. And so anyways, guys, that is all I got for the ESTP shadow, the INFJ shadow function, the ESTP. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, leave me a comment, let me know what you guys think, and we'll see you guys in the next one.